Good morning, everybody. Tara here with a wifey wake up, no makeup this morning, not a stitch, nada of makeup. I'm going to the gym here in a little bit, so rather than just wash it all off, just put on a cap, an American flag, US flag cap, and let's get rolling. So today we're talking about finding your true match beyond the checklist of love. And I had a very short dating experience, fortunately. And also, fortunately, I had a very short list of what I was looking for in a man. And I was pretty flexible with it as well. And originally, I thought I was looking for the Latin lover. That was what I had experienced again in my short time of dating. And it was just something that was appealing. And I'll get to that specifically. What were those things? And fortunately, I wasn't too hard set on those ideas because what I found was my quote Latin lover in my what we joke in our household, it was my Norwegian Latin lover. And there was just, it is such a lesson. And that's why I want to share it with you ladies, that it's so tempting to create that list. You know, he has to have all these things, right? Especially it starts with how he looks. Excuse me, just a moment. I think for the men and the women, it almost always starts with looks. So of course, right? How tall, what's their build, the color of their skin, hair, and eyes. But where you go from there, and also not being set on that, where you go from there can really lead you to true love. So, like I said, I was attracted to what I thought was the Latin lover. But when I got down to it, I got, and in hindsight, I could see and understand what I was really looking for. And this is to refer to yesterday's podcast about, we need cowboys again. It is about you have to look beyond the archetype. The archetype gives a lot of the clues, like I mentioned the cowboy the other day, but it's really what's underneath. What are those characteristics that are underneath? So I knew, and in hindsight, that what I meant by Latin lover were these things that I had gathered in my experience with some of then when I say Latin, I mean Latino. I learned and observed through Mexican classmates in my classroom, in my school, in high school in particular, but also my year abroad in Brazil. And also what we quintessentially know, what we tend to know in our culture as the Latin lover type. But what I was really looking for that I can now dissect is I wanted someone who was romantic. And is so actually, this wasn't in my original write up, but I'll tell you this story. So several years ago, we were in Mexico in the old Puerto Vallarta city. And, it was a tourist city, but it was an old town, which was really nice because you get some of both. You get the characteristics of the old town, but you get some of the touristy stuff, but not too much. But one of the touristy things that we did was go on a little cruise out to a peninsula. And on the peninsula, first of all, you take a little boat ride there, and of course they're serving drinks and all that stuff. And then you get there and it's almost like you're on a tropical island, and you get off the boat and you are led up a very steep path. And I'm like, well, note, don't have too much to drink here. Lit by like the tiki torch kind of lamps or torches, right? And so you couldn't see that well, but then you followed this path up, and then you had dinner at the kind of the mountaintop or the hilltop of this peninsula, and it was really beautiful. It was very well done. And the next day, the next day we were at the concierge asking them for some advice on where to go. And of course, they're very hospitable, saying, how are things going? What are you up to? And we told them that we went on that cruise. And she's like, qué romántico. And that's been our phrase ever since. Like whenever something romantic happens, or particularly when my husband does something romantic, I'll say, ay, qué romántico. And, even in the country, even in the regions that we know as Latino, right? And having that way about them, it was still emphasized. Like, I'm sure we told them a few other things that well, within reason, that my husband did that was very romantico. And it just has been a part of our lives. And so that was something that I didn't know I was looking for, but I was looking for. And I'm going to list off quite a few examples here, because being romantic doesn't mean bringing flowers every day. It doesn't mean big gifts and shopping trips and vacations. Those are fun, and those are the extras, right? When, God willing, you can do those things. But it's the little things and perfect timing.
Que romantico.
Que romantico. Serving the little cafezinho in the morning, the special in my special little cup. And it's those little things that you do for each other. Now, so great start to this. So, for example, my husband will, if he wakes up in the middle of the night and he sees that the blanket has come off my shoulder, he'll pull it over my shoulder. He knows that I like to be all snuggled in. Or similarly, when he has left the bed before I have in the morning, he will kind of spoon me with his pillows and some blankets. And I mean, it fools me. I'll often think that he's still in bed until I realize it was a mound of pillows and blankets. But just again, so I'm comfortable. And when we're out going somewhere on a drive or whatever, or even on a mission, he'll ask if I'd like to stop to get a cup of coffee or some other treat at a place that we're passing by, or even if it's out of the way. Even if we're in a hurry, he'll do that. And I'm usually one like, no, that's okay. But similarly, if we're on the road and maybe we don't have enough time to stop at a restaurant, but we really need to get something to eat, we'll opt for example, going to our favorite co-op where we do our grocery shopping and get something at the deli. And we might not have any time to stop like at a restaurant for something to eat, but he'll take the time to sit with me in the cafe to eat, because I don't like eating on the road. And like I was saying, it's those little things. And yeah, there's so many. He just senses, for example, when I'm a little off, like even when I am not really sensing it, and he might suggest a remedy like watching a movie or going for a drive or going for a walk, that it can be very, very helpful. And, just being aware of each other. Now, these are things that can go back and forth, obviously, clearly. And so that could be another video, the little things that you can do for him. But I just want to note that these little things really do matter. And just to be clear, so I don't have the control of the remote. I don't even know how to operate it. But I don't even really need to, because when we sit down to watch a movie or a show, he's already curated a whole list of things that he knows that I will like. Like, he knows how to pick out movies and shows that I would like better than I can pick them out for myself. And that's just wonderful. I mean, it saves me a half an hour, well, that's exaggerating, maybe 20 minutes of looking for a show or movie that I might like. And instead, what he does is when he's perusing movies, he'll save them to the watch later list, and we'll watch those together. And he'll watch his stuff when he's watching by himself, which I think is something that I think he pointed out one time, like politely, not like, I do this for you. It's just, a polite informing. And I hadn't really noticed that until he pointed it out, because it was so just part of our life and a part of the process. I just thought he was just really good and quick at picking out movies, but he had already kind of pre-curated them for me and for us as he's gone through, and is willing to choose a movie that either both of us are like, and sometimes even one that he knows that it's going to be more something that I like. Okay. So in this sense, this list that I gave you is a brief list. I mean, I could list many more, but I suppose I could define romantic as he seems to get pleasure out of giving pleasure. And the little things, I really want to emphasize, it's the little things, again, that are really important. The big things are fun, the shopping trips. He does an amazing job when we go out shopping, and he's like, get what you want. And, he helps me pick things out. He has a great eye. Of course, he knows what he likes on me, right? That makes it easy. Or a vacation. But it's really those everyday little things, little cafezinhos that really make a difference because they keep the flame alive. They keep the flame burning, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. When I thought that I wanted this Latin lover, in hindsight, I can see what else I was looking for was the romantic and someone who's family oriented. And this is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I think we know, and we all have our own idea of what is family oriented. But to be clear, I wanted someone who would prioritize family above all else. Second, of course, only to God. His career, as demanding as it might be, everything that he does is centered around the family. And that he does so not necessarily out of obligation, feeling like, oh, this is my burden, this is a cross I must bear, but it's something that he desires to do. It's something that he really feels a calling in a way to do. And fortunately, I was able to observe this in him early. So when I first met him, sometimes his son would be with him. And I would notice and kind of perceive how, well, his son was 11 at the time when we all met. And I noticed how he was old enough, 11 years old, to kind of play by himself and do things. But I perceived after some time that John had really created a life so that he could be around his son. He could be the good example of a father, but also provide. And so, there were other people in his life as well that were great examples that his son could be with, and, made career choices to make sure that he was around his son. And I think what was most impressive is that I learned that he had had sole custody of his son since his son was a baby. And back in the 80s, I mean, that was unheard of. That was unprecedented. And so I think, there are a couple ways to look at that, but I knew that he was an exemplary person. So I could see that obviously being a good match for me in the future as well. And I think another thing to note that I noticed since then also is that he not only moved his life around to accommodate his family. He does it today, in the sense that we live on the same property as his parents, caretaking for them, just being available. And that's a high priority. But also that as his son was growing up, he made sure that he had the education and particularly the knowledge of a family trade, namely in precision machining and business, so that he would have something to lean on, not just, the typical education, but he would have something that he could take into the world and provide for himself and his family. And that was extremely notable. So moving on, another thing that in hindsight, I realized that what I envisioned or idealized as the Latin lover was someone who was, like I said, romantic, family oriented, but also fun. Okay. Now, fun, of course, is very subjective. It's going to really depend on what your idea of fun is. And for me, what I can see in our 20 some years together, well, we've been together 24 years, almost married 24 years, is that I needed someone that could really complement and balance me. And I think we all need that, but it's also what makes life in a relationship so fun, but it's also what can aggravate us the most. It can make it passionate, and it can also be the source of your most passionate fights, right? And so it's focusing on what is complementary, what are the complementary aspects. And for me, it is, he's my sunshine. I know it's usually said about women, but really, every morning I'm greeted with a smile, fun, and, hugs and kisses. And, it's really taught me to reciprocate that. I, by nature, am more, you would say, Saturnian, more serious, more regimented, more like, I got to get this done this morning. And he's really helped me to realize to stop and smell the roses, to stop and give a kiss in the morning, to pause. And, it might take some time out of my morning that I wasn't planning. But like yesterday, I extended my morning out and And instead of getting right on to computer work, just took some time with him in the morning and had a nice chat. And so he's fun in the ways that I need. And I think that's by almost definition what we perceive as fun in another individual. And I want to emphasize too that it's just, it's a kind of fun that you can have fun in other ways, right? You can buy something new, let's say a new vehicle or something. And I love driving my vehicle. It's not a sports car or anything like that, but we can have something nice that we really enjoy. But when you have that, your lover, your perfect partner in life, it brings a sense of joy and fun that nothing else can really do for you. And that's why I really wish that for everyone. I think it fulfills you in a way that nothing else can. And so last but certainly not least, and this is not necessarily the Latin lover kind of definition, but this was something a little bit more personal to me that I soon realized was really important to me. And that is that I needed to be with someone that I could look up to. I needed to be with someone who really was competent in life. And we joke that when my husband and I met, I was 18 and he was 30. And we joke that we met in the middle, age-wise, maturity-wise. I was always more mature for my age. He was less mature, which was he had far more life experience still at 30 than even the joke is that we met in the middle at 25. But the important thing is that he had life experiences and he had learned from them. And I sensed and I could see that he was someone that I could look up to and learn from. And that was and still is extremely valuable to me. We are both firstborns, and it's extremely rare that firstborns not only get together and marry, but stay together, especially as long as we've been together, which is almost 24 years. We've been married almost 24 years. And it is because you're both accustomed to being the leaders in a way, taking charge, wanting to do it your way, because that's the right way to do it. And I think what really saves our marriage in that way is that he is 12 years older. And there's a knowing in me from very early on that he innately knows more, just having been in life longer. But I also met him in the arena that I met him in. I could see him teaching other people. I could see other people looking up to him, and I could see his competence in teaching and interacting with other people. And that really, I think, made an impression that I also then followed suit. Now, there were times, particularly early in our relationship, where he literally said, Terry, you can't wear the pants in this household. They won't fit. And he meant his pants, right? That proverbial phrase. And I think that was important. It was good that he did that early. He said that early on, because it was in my nature, not only being the firstborn, but also the environment that I grew up in, which was that the woman would take charge. And it was important and helpful that he nipped that in the bud early on, so that it didn't continue to be a problem in our relationship. And that's just an example, kind of what I was referring to in yesterday's podcast when I was talking about we need more cowboys. I mean, that is the demeanor that I'm talking about. That's the characteristic. And so, ladies, when you encounter that, rather than resist that right away, I understand. I know the resistance where you're like, but I know this to be right. Slow down and have a conversation. Listen, have a conversation about it and seek to understand his point of view, especially and hopefully he has more experience. He's been in life longer. Let him lead the family from the onset. And hopefully you found a person who can really fill that role. But particularly if you are able to have an adult conversation with him, that you will discover that he's very capable of that role as well. So that was probably the most important thing to me, is that I was with someone that I could look up to, that I could learn from, who then innately I could trust. I mean, that's built into that, right? That he has the experience, the knowledge, the wisdom to do and take care of all the things, the basic things that we need in life. And if he doesn't, he has the basic skills to also learn. There's so much that could be said about that, but for the sake of the length of this podcast, I'll leave it there. Then on top of that, I discovered, and of course knew from the onset, that he's handsome. He's extremely competent. He has a sexy voice. He has the girthy body that I love. Those are all icing on the cake. Any possessions that he may have had or come into over time, or that would leave our life, those would be transient, right? Those are icing on the cake as well. You cannot change someone's core personality, their character. And so that's why I implore you to understand the archetypes that you're attracted to. So I've named 2 in the last 2 days, the Latin lover and the cowboy. But what's underneath? What is it about those archetypes, those characters that you're attracted to? That's most important, because when you're attracted to that, that is the steady, what is it? I don't want to say undertow, but it's the current under the surface that is deep within the person. And that's what you want to connect with. The surface stuff is surface. And ladies, I know it irritates some of you. It irritates me at times when guys are like, I don't care as long as she's hot. That will get them in trouble too, but it gets us in trouble also when you're just looking at the external, whether it's the physical characteristics, his job, his car. Go for what is deep down, what is underneath. Understand what it is that you deeply value, and that will help you to find your true match. And I so want that for you. I think our world would be so much better off if we had people, if we really felt that we were truly with our mate, our magic match, and we have to get beyond the surface. We're human. We're going to look at superficial things, but the more we can tune in and go deeper, I think the better off we are. So with that, please like, subscribe, share this with a friend who perhaps came to mind while you were listening to this, and I'd love to hear your comments as well. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.